you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Hello everyone, welcome to V to Premium Transitions, the show where we take a deck in V Premium and show you that turning it into a premium deck isn't so hard. Today we're covering the gods of the gridiron themselves, Spike Brothers, and I have, of course, Livingproof with me to help me with that. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How you doing? I'm about to say how's everybody doing, but it's like I'm not talking to everybody, but how's everybody doing?
At the moment, yeah. That's true. No, you're watching this in the future, and I'm doing this at 7 in the morning LA time, so this will be fun.
I think we'll be okay.
Why don't we start with game plan is in V Premium real quick.
So the task that I was assigned was to try to put together a V Premium deck list, and ideally we don't make a ton of changes to it for people who might be wanting to transition that over into Premium. And in V Premium, this list that you see doesn't of course include Juggernaut Maximum, which is a new card we got from the Clan Collection. And the reason I kept that one out is because the changes you would have to make to incorporate that into Premium would require you to get some other additional stuff. So I wanted to keep that out, but wanted to keep that in mind in case for those who want to pick up the deck. If you want to play V Premium with the Max version, there's some cards in there that you can also take out, and got the whole video on my channel as well. I don't want to get too bogged down into that.
I can put that in the description so people can go watch that one after this.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Deck log for these two lists will be in the description if you want to look at them more closely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the reason I wanted to say that is because if you play against Spikes in V Premium, you may not necessarily see this particular version of the deck. You might see one that uses Max more readily. But for this one more uses Bull Spike and Lucifer to be able to pull off a lot of attacks with the force movement going on, because that is granted by Bull Spike being able to Soul Blast 1 when your unit attacks. You can Soul Blast 1 and slide that over. But the reason you can achieve that is because Rising Nova V, he allows you to copy 2 of your grade 3 rear guards and get all their card effects. So what you want to do is combine Dudley Lucifer and Bull Spike, because what that does, it allows you to, as I previously mentioned, attack a lot of times. And you can achieve that because you can swing with both of your rear guards after you copy with Rising Nova. When you attack with Rising Nova, you can counterblast 1 and use the Lucifer effect to absorb a rear guard. Lucifer requires you to call a Dudley, so ideally you call Dudley Davy, which is why we play 4 of them. And by doing so, you use another counterblast, and you call out either another Lucifer or you call out Dudley William, which is like a last ditch effort type of thing. What you really want to do, you want to call out Lucifer again. And then what that allows you to achieve is that you can achieve at least 5 attacks with the force movement without having any other cards added into Soul. If you want to try that out, you can, but I don't know if we want to go too deep into that particular sequence of plays. But it's achievable on turn 3 or turn 4, depending on how your pieces come together. So what you want to do is get your opponent in a position where they might die to said combo, and then combo off on them. The pressure of the +10 and the crit from the double forces, because Rising Nova grants you both Force 1 and Force 2. It will overwhelm your opponent, and then you can win on that particular turn. And then thanks to Bull Spike, you can get a draw and retire in the process as well.
That's on hit, right? Or is that?
No, it's on miss.
On miss, okay.
Yeah, so once per turn on miss, if your unit on a force marker doesn't hit, you can retire and draw a card. Back in the day, back when spikes were nearly as potent of a killing machine, you would go double Bull Spike and try to retire 2, draw 2, because it'd be very easy to make sure your opponent didn't die to your force marker attack, so it would obviously miss and then you would draw 2, retire 2. But it wasn't enough in the day to keep up with whatever was in the current meta, but now it has the tools in place to be able to actually effectively kill. And to support that, we use Rona. I use 3 here. You can always use 4. I opted to go with 3 just because it's the lesser important grade 2, but it allows you to find pieces, your grade 3s, to put your combo together. But you can easily take out maybe an Acrobat Verde, the grade 3 searcher, to fill in that 4th spot. Agile fullback is a very important piece for your early aggression, both in V and in Premium, which we'll cover in a little bit. But when you call to the back row center, it can attack from the back row, and then if it's called through a card effect, it gets plus 10k. So it's like a bracky that can operate from the back row. Allows you to continue your aggression and also keep it safe, because a lot of places or a lot of decks can't necessarily touch the back row. And then Davy, of course, is your primary grade 2, but you ideally don't want to ride it, which is where having that 4th Rona might come in handy, because you want to save it for your Lucifer if you can. But if not, then it's still an on-ride +1, which is nice. Dexter is arguably the most important grade 1 in both decks. It's just a on place, and then it just sets up your combo for you. You can find whatever grade 3s you might need. You might have the combo, but then you can save a card in hand by still fishing out the 2 pieces of your combo and then go from there. Incredible card. And then William is more so for the force movement, but when you ride it, you can call it out on your grade 2 turn and then just get a free body that can go into soul and move your force markers around. So it's like a mini bull spike that can be searchable because it's a Dudley name. And then for the triggers, just standard 8 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal. Yeah, I know people who play 6 crit, 6 draw, so it's totally up to you, but you can make the argument that trying to have as many crits as possible, barring sentinels, is what you want to be having for spikes, just to put that pressure on them.
I notice like nowadays, because there are a lot of bigger attacks happening, some decks won't even do 4 heal guardians anymore in V.
Oh.
Like it'll be like 3 heal guardians, 1 of the old heals for that 20k shield, or 2 and 2. 2 and 2 seems a little dangerous in my opinion, because you can't guarantee what you're going to come across at whichever point in the game, and being able to have the like +10 or the -2 crit thing early, I think is more important than an extra 5k shield. Let's see how it changes from one format to the other. So here we have the premium build for spikes, and I noticed that it's a lot purpler, a lot shinier.
So
I'm kidding,
this
but,
this was my, in the interest of working smarter, not harder, I just took my BRO deck list and just did the whole copy edit function in deck log. As you can see, I have the rarities as I mentioned before, and
they're not necessarily required. Just keep that.
No, not required. Definitely just stick to base rarity. But as you can see, for some of the edits for the deck for the grade 3s, I play 1 less bull spike to make space for other cards. 3 Rona and the 4 Davy still stick around here. You could argue you could play the 4th Rona because it's important to be able to try to chain a Rona. I used to call it Rona because that's what the old first translation we got before we found out it was Rona, and then coronavirus hit, and I just like I got into the habit of calling it Rona, and I kind of
Rona sounds better.
Yeah, now I flip flop. You could play the 4th one because it's important to be able to chain Dudley Lucifer for your combos to get that counter charge. Because something I didn't mention on the V premium side, it comes up once a game, but in premium it comes up maybe 3, 4, 5 times a game. Is the fact that Dudley Lucifer, his first skill, when placed by a card ability, you can Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1. And in Premium, you don't hurt for Soul as much as you do in V Premium. So you have more liberty of using the Soul Blast skill to be able to countercharge, because you have a lot of skills that put cards from either your hand, well, definitely your hand, into the soul to pay for costs, which we'll cover. In addition to everything, we added Bracky, and the reason for Bracky is because there might be some instances where you want to be aggressive early in premium because you want to set your opponent up to die to your galley combo, and the more damage they have, the less opportunities they have to check some miracle trigger to get them out of the situation, such as the over trigger, as you can see down here. Like, barring your feelings about it, you kind of have to play it because otherwise you're going to be at a disadvantage for not using it. But it's something you have to keep in mind when playing premium. Be able to build damage on your opponent, especially if they're a slower deck that might have, for example, Hanali, which this deck doesn't have an out for. You can tech for it, but it requires you to add an additional piece to the deck. Something to keep in mind. But if you're playing against a deck that potentially, or has Hanali, you want to be aggressive and build that damage up so that you can push through the Hanali and still win because of your stride combos. So that's where Bracky helps. There's other cards that can help there, such as Black Panther, which is an oldie but goodie, but it gains 5k, so it allows you to hit over a double defensive trigger where Bracky might not be able to do that. There's some other things you can do to help out there, but to not get too bogged down in that, another piece we added was Dudley Daisy. So we took out other Dudley, that's a tongue twister, in William, and we added Daisy, because what she allows you to do is when she's placed through a card ability, you can Soul Blast 1 and then fish out a Deli grade 3. So it's another way to get Lucifer on the board if you need to. So nice little 1-2 punch to be able, and it allows you to fill out your board, because your combos, once you get familiar with them, it helps you out to be able to fill up all your board spaces to help achieve your combos.
Yeah, Spikes is one of those like deceptively complicated decks. Like on paper it goes, what do you mean? You just call from deck, it goes away, call from deck, it goes away. And it's not, because you're working with the entire deck of whatever it is. Compared to something like if you watch the last one, Gold Paladin, where you're just kind of working with the cards that you're dealt with, literally. Top 5, let's do this one. This is, you have to know exactly what it is you want to get at all times. And then the other thing was you mentioned Hanali. So to any V players who don't know what Hanali is, it's a Cray Elemental, which means you can play it in any deck. And the effect is, while it's on board, if anybody wants to attack the Vanguard from the 5th battle of that turn or more, they have to counterblast to be able to attack. So a lot of clans that use Hanali will try and call it mid-battle phase, so that the opponent has to then either get around Hanali, blow it up, put it in the soul, whatever, or they are then bogged down with, do I have the counterblast to make this work, or do I just get stopped in my tracks?
Yep.
So that will come up both here and in future episodes of this series. Yeah.
It is definitely a pain. Spikes, thanks to D standard, has different ways to try to work through it, but it's up to you to figure out which way works best for you if you want to add it. It also depends on the current state of the meta will highly be played, because the decks that it might be good against are not showing up. So it's like, do you want to tech for it or not?
Nightmare Dolls kind of dropped off, and that was the main thing that could get around Hanali, because they had Nightmare Doll Chelsea. So you might start to see it creeping back up again. We don't know. So just keep an eye out for it. I don't know how expensive it is at the time of recording this. If you want to pick it up yourself for whatever clan you happen to be playing.
Yeah, go for it. It's always an ever-present threat, because it like ebbs and flows as time goes on.
Every 27 years, like it.
Exactly. And then, as you may notice, some of the triggers changed, and that's because we played 3 of the Stride crit, so it acts as a grade 3 in your hand to pitch for Stride. So it allows you to just fulfill the requirement without needing to go through any extra hoops. The biggest change, and arguably the most important change, is that we added in this stand trigger, Mecha Instructor. And this is the key enabler for a lot of your Stride-based combos, especially with Galley, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But what he says is, he has charge. For those who are unfamiliar, charge is the keyword Spikes got back in G era, which says when it's placed by a card ability, you have the option to put it into the charge-in state. So then after it is engaged in battle, either by boosting or attacking, you put it back to the bottom if you put it into charge. So what Mecha Instructor here says is that put a card from your hand into the soul, and then can choose something on your board, bind it, and recall it. And the only way to do that, and it's done so by when it goes back to the deck. And that's important for Galley, because you'll see in a second, Galley, for the cards that attack, they just go back to the bottom. So for Mecha Instructor, you can put him in charge, but he doesn't have to be in charge or be put back in the deck via charge for the ability to work. It just needs to go back to the bottom. Gotcha. So it's an important distinction, because some Spike cards back in the day had that little wrinkle in it, and that's why Mecha Instructor is very potent, because it doesn't have that extra little hoop to jump through to be able to enable itself. This is a big piece to a lot of your combos here, so you definitely want to pick this up if you're interested in converting your deck from V over into Premium.
Oh yeah, for the over trigger. Is it possible to play the vanilla one and be okay?
In Spike, I guess you can. It doesn't hurt, but
you want
I think you want this one over the base one, just because this deck's a little more aggressive. Right. So it kind of adds a 4th like super powered critical trigger to your deck. Like if you check the over trigger early, then it just makes your future turns that much more threatening. But if you check it on your combo turn, you'll have 2 units on board to be able to take advantage of the 100 million power from it. So you can still get those 1-2 attacks off in the world where your opponent PGs the Vanguard. So there's applications both ways. Obviously, the perception of Galmageld has gone down over time, and it's perceived to be the worst nation over trigger.
Really?
Because after we did like all the data and stuff, you realize that on average, you're going to check your over trigger later on in the game.
Oh, yeah.
Which is where Yamagel loses his potency, because you want to check it as early as possible.
Which is ironic, because the one for Lyrical Monasterio, where it gives 10k to your rear guards, is one of the better ones, and it's the same type of effect where it's an
right
thing. I think they're about to reprint all of these, all of the OTs,
yep.
so this might be less of a problem.
Yeah.
Or hear me out, Bushra. Just ban the thing. Not too hard.
Just in premium.
Just fine in premium.
If you want to keep it in standard, because that's that's okay. But I think they need to go in premium, no doubt. I'm in lockstep with you there.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this G zone. What do we got going on here?
All right, so in essence, for your G zone, you can just ignore the fact that the non-galley strides exist, because in like 90% of the scenarios, you're going to be going into galley over any other option, especially now because some of the tougher matchups, I believe, took a dip down through the V-Col or the V collection meta with the new cards coming in. But I'll read the strides really fast. So this is our main boy, Galley Gavalis, and he says when your rear guard attacks, it gets plus 10k until the end of that battle. After the battle, it goes to the bottom. And so that it clears the row, because a lot of your effects can call to it. And then, as we talked about with Mecha Instructor, it enables your Mecha Instructor because it just puts it to the bottom to activate the ability. And then his other ability says when he attacks, Soul Blast 1, search your deck for up to 2 grade 2 or less cards, call them to open rearguard circles, and then all your rearguards that are presently on the board, this is important, they gain boost. And at first I thought the boost part of the ability wasn't that good, but then as time has gone on and I've understood the combos better, it's an important piece to the puzzle here. So the reason we go into this is because the plus 10k, it compounds over all of your attacks, and you're going to be putting as many attackers back into the front row as you can because of Mecha Instructor, and because of Dexter, and because of his own ability to call from your deck, and because it just gives you full access to your deck. You can call what is best for the situation at hand. But primarily, the main rule of thumb is that if you have a Dexter, you're going to be calling 2 Mecha Instructors. If you don't have a Dexter, you're going to call a Dexter and a Mecha Instructor, and that's because it enables Villain Verminous, which was useful in case in the world you faced against Ghidorah, because he says when your unit on force doesn't hit, your rear guard on force doesn't hit, you can Soul Blast 2 to flip up a unit in your G zone, draw a card, and call a card from your hand to the circle. So Ghidorah locked down the front row. It locked down superior calls from anywhere except for your hand. This allows you to get over that.
This is the equivalent of that dragon from Gold Paddle, where it was like draw 2, call 2 from hand.
Right, exactly.
A lot of clans seem to have something like that, almost as like a silver bullet. Like, we know we don't call from hand usually, but here's one. Just one.
We got you.
We got you. Yeah. So in case Ghidorah becomes a big deal again, that's why.
Right. I personally don't like it because I don't think it's that good in the matchup. But if there's other changes you can make to the deck to be able to fight through what Ghidorah can do, but it's not nearly the problem now because they touched some of the important pieces of it, which is good. And then we have Violence Ace, which is a decent stride, better in Hellheart 8 decks. But he says Counterblast 1, turn a card in your G zone face up. Draw cards equal to the number of cards face up in your G zone. So at least one if it's your first stride for whatever reason. And then it also unlocks the ability to Soul Blast 1, and then it's not once per turn. Soul Blast 1, give a unit plus 10k. And then has an additional ability. When your opponent would guard with 2 or more cards, you can Counterblast 1, put rear guard into your soul, and then call a card from your hand to your rear guard. So not great for that ability, but it's really good for to be able to burst draw, especially during your Hellheart setups. Here, you might just want to use it because you might need some big beefy power to push through something, and you have some access soul to use.
Or you got a big hand, right? You can.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then not required, but I played Formido. If you're in a position where you can't get it, don't worry about it. But I just play it. It's just the progenitor stride for Dark States. Basically, it says when placed, Counterblast 1. Your opponent chooses the same number of rear guards as you have open circles and retires them. And if they retire 3 or more, Soul Charge 5. You may just use it to try to clean the board up, but not super useful, but it was like a silver bullet, like you mentioned, in case it came up. And then, of course, you have, yep, or Honolulu. Yeah. And of course, you have Hail Hard 8. If all else fails, you can lean back on Hail Hard 8. It's basically Galley, but after the unit attacks, you can put into the soul, search your deck out for any other card, and then call it out to keep the chain going. As long as you have cards in hand to fulfill the put from card from your hand into the cost. Galley is like the little brother version of that, but still potent. So you have Hail Hard 8 on both ends of the spectrum.
That's pretty cool. I didn't even think of that.
That's,
because like I know when Galley came out, you were like, "This is awesome," and I was like, "That seems good," but I don't know why. Yeah,
I never put the connection of it to being like a Hail Hard 8, but like a first tried Hail Hard 8 until recently. But now I think it's just easier to put it in that context for people who don't know spikes as well.
Right.
And then our oldie but goodie, our boy Bull Power Agrius. He used to be our primary stride back in the day, but then as time went on, he just became less useful. But he says, on attack, counterblast 1, flip up a card in your G zone, and then you can bind any number of your rear guards. And then if you bound 3 or more, draw 1, and then choose 2 cards from your bind zone for every card in your G zone, and then call it back out to a circle. So it was a way to enable 5 attacks on the first stride, but just didn't gain power. Like the draw didn't really matter a ton. So as decks got better main deck stuff and their stride stuff started to catch up to it, it just became not a great stride to go into. I think I've gone into maybe one time since Galley's come out.
Do you use it against Narukami ever?
Potentially. It kind of depends on what they're binding, because you try your best not to set up your drop in your field to be bound by Narukami early, and then try to beat them down with Galley. Granted, there's some nuance there, because they have the ability to bind from the board, and then they have their G guards, which can retire mid-battle phase. So it adds some wrinkles there to try to navigate through. Not a fun matchup.
No, it's not fun for anyone.
It's a fine matchup, but it requires some more thought to navigate. So if you like those puzzle games, then that's a fun matchup for you. But yeah, that's basically it. If you have any other questions about what the deck is trying to accomplish. Game plan wise, you're trying to be aggressive early, and then maybe it's different now because of the way the meta is now, but back in the day, we would try to stick on grade 2 for as long as possible. But you have the ability to ride up thanks to the aforementioned Lucifer Bull Spike combination to be able to put a lot of attacks on your opponent and just wear down their resources, so that way on their grade 3/first stride turn, they can't do a whole lot. You survive and tank it, and then Galley can finish off the job. That's mainly what the deck is doing. When all else fails, lean on Galley.
But yeah, Proof, thank you so much for coming on and teaching the people. If you want to see more from Livingproof, his whole channel is like the Spike Central, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. Anything else you wanted to like shout out? Or
I know I kind of went through things kind of fast. Sometimes my mind and the words come out a little bit quickly. So if you have any other questions, feel free to come to my Discord channel, and I'll be willing to help there.
Yeah, definitely. Proofcord is a great resource. You have heard us mention it many times on Nexus. Yeah, deck list will be in the description. All the social medias at Nexus at Night on Twitter. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell a friend. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. Be easy.